Hey, experts listeners. I want to key you into something that we do very special here at Ops Experts Club, and that's a masterclass. We have a free masterclass called Foundations That Scale. And the great thing about this masterclass is it's for operation professionals who are growing businesses. One of the most dangerous things you can do as an operator is grow businesses on a foundations that's not stable. So in this particular masterclass, we take apart all of the inside pieces of your team, your tech, and how they're using time. And we make sure that you're building on a foundation that's stable. So if you want to check out a great masterclass completely for free, go to foundationsthatscale.com. We'll see you there.
Welcome to the Ops Experts Club with Aaron, Terryn, and Savannah. This podcast will take you behind the scenes of some of the finer details of multi-million-dollar companies. These ops experts have dealt with operations for scaling companies and well-established businesses with anywhere from small to large teams. If you've ever been deep into the details of a major company, then you know how much it takes, and these conversations are just for you. Welcome to the Ops Experts Club podcast.
Welcome to Ops Experts Club. Great to see everybody today. Terryn, Savannah, nice to have you today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Pretty excited. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one today. We have a great guest today. So I think ops experts are always looking for different people that do operations well. And operations, any of you that are in operations know it's multifaceted. You know, there's a lot of times I found for Terryn and I and Savannah, it's not a question of what we can do, it's what we should do, right? Like, because I think that we can do a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? But if everything is one-off or everything is new to, you know, this particular client, a lot of times it's really hard to get efficiencies out of that. So I think we've narrowed it down to several things that I feel like we do really well. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is something that we've done historically and have helped teams build, and then are kind of rolling into with Collab Team as well with some new things we're rolling out. So I'm excited to talk about all of it today, but I'm most excited to have our guest on today. So Dan Tao has been a personal friend of mine, is the retention specialist for Pedro Adao, which is one of our big clients, has been a big client for a lot of years. So Dan, so great to have you on the show today. Grateful for you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes.
Welcome.
And two Wyomings on the call today, Savannah and Dan. Terryn, you had I put you on a project in Wyoming. Everybody's been to this small little area of Wyoming even. I mean, Wyoming is a pretty unique spot, right? Pretty small, lots of spread out, but it's pretty unique when you can say we've all been to this little pin drop known as Star Valley, Wyoming. So that's a big deal.
Some people don't even believe it exists. So, you know, we're all here to say Wyoming is a real place.
Right? Sasquatch, Nessie, and Wyoming. They all exist. You know what I'm saying? Like they're all in the practicality.
Yeah, Wyoming's the biggest rural state around.
That's it, Terryn. See, Dan, we could get him moving there in no time. We can get him there, no problem.
That would be good.
Anyway, hey, so today as we talk, retention is something that plagues any online entrepreneur, right? Like there are so many guys that are out there that can sell, right? They've got a great product. They've got a great offering that they bring. They've got a great service that's offered. It's not an issue of getting people to say yes. It's realizing that a yes can be fragile, right? Like it's the realizing people get excited. You know, if they're not paying in full, that means they're on a payment plan. If they're on a payment plan, that means there's an opportunity for a yes to no longer be a yes as they reel that back in and they say, I've overcommitted. Or a lot of it comes down to personal belief in self, you know, like, can I do this? Am I able to complete this? Did I make a mistake betting on me? And I know, Dan, you've got a lot of things to say to that as we move to you here in just a minute. But I think that retention has been something that we've done within Collab Team for a lot of years, you know, and it started with me, you know, and some of our earliest clients. And then I passed it off to Terryn, who is in Cadence, made it better and passed it on to other people within Collab Team. And then, you know, as we were within Pedro Adao's organization and we were helping him with retention and they needed more help, I thought Dan's a good, close personal friend, has done a lot in the sales space, has done a lot in the retail banking space, has got a real good idea of how money works and how the coming and going of funds work, but also is just such a super heart-centered, heart first kind of guy, you know? And I think that's really important when it comes to retention, because otherwise there's a very fine line between retention and collections, you know? And I think that if you're not careful, collections has a lot of cold, harsh, threatening to it, that you can take some of your greatest fans and turn them into some of your greatest detractors by just how you treat them in this very key pivotal time when their yes becomes fragile. So I think that I'm excited to have Dan on because I feel like all of us on this call have done some retention within Collab Team. Dan has done by far the most of it and has had tremendous success about it. So Dan, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about what retention means to you and some of the successes you found and techniques that you've used on just treating people as people and loving on people in a lot of times their most fragile times, right? A lot of times they start saying no when things get bumpy and they start doubting themselves.
Well, thank you. I can tell you that when I first started this, I did not like, because I looked at it as far as collections rather than retention. And then getting to talk with the people, I literally talk to people around the world and find out about them. And it's about them. We do need to get them back online and remembering why they got into the program in the first place. But finding out what's going on in their lives and then remind them why they got into the program. So I listen rather than try to beat them over the head and come at it in the opposite spirit, because when they first see my name pop up or why I'm reaching out to them, they don't want to talk. But afterwards, I've made a lot of friends. I've got people that have written letters because of the way it was handled. So it's treating them like a real human being. And then I have opportunity to pray with them and pray for them and see how the Lord works and moves in their behalf. And that is really, really, that's why I do what I do now. And I love it. I went from hating it to loving it.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Terryn, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on retention? I know, like you, Terryn, for those of you who may not realize, Terryn a lot of times puts the SOPs, the details, the things together, the moving pieces. As we take on new clients, Terryn's the one that builds all the reports and makes sure all the communication is there and make sure that the retention specialist has what they need and then coaches them through it. What do you think about hearing those things, Terryn? Any questions come to mind for you?
I'm just glad people like Dan exist, because I was more on the process, not the people side. So I did it for a couple of years and I dreaded every phone call I had to make. I just do not handle being yelled at very well from people not wanting to pay, from upset people. So yeah, I'm glad definitely there's people like Dan out there who are very much more on the people side of it. And I love the process side. I love doing the report and the automation, the things to make it work. So Dan can just go in there and easily do his thing and just stick with the people and just follow something pretty clearly laid out for him.
Yeah. Which is great because Dan doesn't like doing that side of it. Like that's not the side Dan wants to do. Like Dan loves the people side. So I think, yeah, I know one of our newest clients we picked up with Collab's arm of Heart First Retention is what we're calling it, is Pace Morby is another one that, we've started working with in that direction, and plugging Pauline into that back end of what you're talking about there, Terryn, of helping with the lift, helping whoever's the retention specialist that's going to be making the reach outs, not have to get lost in all the details, all the reporting, all the different pieces. How can you make it just as simple as possible? So I think both sides of the role are really important. So I'd love that you enjoy that so much. Dan, I think one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about is reminding people of the value, right? Like reminding people of, hey, if you've made 2 or 3 payments into this program and you stop now and you lose all, yes, you're going to damage your name in this community. That's one of the things. But I think more than that, you've made an investment because you felt like you had a need that this could fill. And by now saying you're no longer going to continue forward with those payments, you're actually just flushing all that money down the toilet. I mean, everything that you invested, all that time, all that money, all that energy, all that yes that you said because you saw the need, where are you going to go with that now? Maybe can you speak to that, Dan, of just really calling out to people's better judgment of, hey, tell me where this is coming from. I think a lot of times we can hear the what, wait a minute, they're canceling, and we can lean in and like Terryn was saying, we can just kick them into a cadence of, well, that means this is going to happen. And then operationally, this is going to happen. And then operationally, this is going to happen, instead of realizing, no, wait, it's not about the what, it's about the why. Like, how did we get here? Talk to me a little bit about that. Dan, you want to share a little on those lines?
Sure. So first thing I do is, even though I get notes that, hey, this person wants to cancel, when I finally get on a Zoom call with them, and I like to meet people face to face rather than just a phone call or texting, emailing back and forth, but just making a connection. And then I ask from their perspective, what's going on? And I find out about them. And then I do ask them, why did you get into this program in the first place? So I start to remind them all the benefits that they signed up for and they were taking advantage of. And then remind them that, the best place that we can invest in is in ourselves. And you took that that leap and started investing in yourself. Why? How can I help you get back on track so that you can continue to invest in yourself, which is the best place we can?
Savannah, I know you deal with it from the other side of like a lot of times, your specialty within Collab Team is customer support. I mean, you set up customer support ticketing systems, you help people with FAQs and cadence of communication and how you should be communicating. A lot of times it origins with your people before it ends up with Dan or it ends up with somebody on Dan's side of the field. Do you want to speak to that a little bit of like how you feel like that handoff goes? I know you've worked a lot with Dan within Pedro Adao's organization, that you set up their whole Zendesk, their whole customer experience journey. You've worked a lot with their bot people, even how the bot is handling people when they say, I want a refund or I want to, cancel my subscription. Can you speak to maybe that handoff coming from you to Dan?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some hard situations that come up in people's lives. And most of the time, like, you see refund requests for small purchases all the time. And it's not that those should just be given, but it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's not worth your time, but kind of it's not worth your time. They didn't really invest much into themselves to begin with. It's whatever. But some of these bigger ones where they did decide to make like a $5,000 purchase and then suddenly they're backtracking on that. A lot of times they're so frazzled with what's going on in their life and they're so stressed out about it and they're looking for ways to kind of outlet that. So their first stop is usually customer service to berate them about what's not going right with what they're doing to kind of justify asking for a refund. And so I think it's important to have a retention specialist on team or have someone that you can send them to, because for customer experience, who's dealing with hundreds of people a day and someone just comes at them angry, the first response is like, well, I don't want to do anything for you. But you have to stop and you have to think about it where it's like, okay, they're angry because they are dealing with something bigger than you and like even bigger than themselves. And they need to be able to talk to someone about it, because if you give them the refund, they're doing a disservice to them. Of course, you're hurting your company, but like they desperately need to talk to somebody about it because something is happening. And yeah, it's tough to deal with it on your own without a retention specialist. Like I never feel fully equipped to help people with those situations, and you want to so bad. And it's like, well, like I'm not a therapist and I'm not, like a spiritual counselor and stuff. So I can like tell you that I just like I care about you, but like let me put you to someone that, you just it helps edify a whole team and make them feel stronger as a whole to have a retention specialist on staff that that you have someone that can have these tough conversations with them and spend that time with them and get them back on track. Because the whole reason that you started your business is because you want to serve people. And so you want to do what's right for them.
You nail on a really big thing where, people are going through tough times, but we still have to differentiate between being there to serve them and not being a counselor. Just that happened yesterday. And that's a tough one. You know what? I'm not a counselor. I can't do that for you, but this is what I can do. And so that's a really good Savannah.
I was thinking too, like, I think on any teams, like for us as operations experts, I think that we roll into a team, and for us, the best thing we can do is create lanes. Like, okay, so what is this role supposed to be doing with their time though? Because if Savannah as a customer expert, like a customer experience support, whatever the role is, her role is trying to clear cut the forest, right? Like she's not supposed to be getting deep into the weeds with all these different people. Really, she's trying to help as many people as possible. And if there are special needs, she needs to have somebody that she can escalate that up to. And maybe it's somebody that's higher on the customer support team, or there needs to be a differentiation in my mind when it comes to retention, because I feel like, wait a minute, this person has already said yes, which means that likely will say yes again in the future. So we need to really shuttle these people well right now and make sure we help them stay on board. We don't just like pitch them over the side, because in the end, like Dan said, it doesn't serve them well, right? Like it's an investment they made that they're losing out on. Most people have a solid no refund policy in place, so they just lose those payments they made up to this point. And then where are they going to go from here? And then for us, like every company we work with has an ascension plan, right? They start here. The hope is that we're going to be able to grow their engagement with us over time. Well, the second you throw them over the boat, we just lost that, and you've turned them into a detractor, which means they're probably going to speak ill of you everywhere downstream in all of these communities that they've been making friends with and that you've been supporting them in. So I think that shuttling them from that place of this role is customer experience. we're going to shuttle. We have somebody specifically lined out for this. And I know for a lot of visionaries, they can be like, man, this is another cost. Or maybe there's a percentage like a sales call would get, of commission on the backside if they're retained, which I think is really smart. Incentivize your retention specialist because you want them to you want them to be even more invested besides just they get an hourly paycheck and they like people. Like give them some incentive to really lean in and keep this people on board. And I think if you can do that well, then the backside of that is you end up with the kind of people that Dan helps. Like Dan has got a list of people that have written emails in, written letters in, like sang his praises. But Dan, they probably came at you pretty pissed out of the gates, right? Like Savannah's right. They come in angry. You want to talk about that just for a minute? Just like transforming people from angry to happy?
Yeah, had just yesterday was one that was not happy. Yes, had life event happen, was paid in full, and this was a non-refundable program. And I did escalate up, needed to see if we could make an exception. But we held fast, and I explained it, still in low, but they understood and thanked me for it. So it doesn't always happen that way, but it's nice when it does. And then we have others that back before we had this SOP down, we had one that was 3 months behind and reached out. And I was being judgmental in regards to this person. But come to find out, as Paul Harvey used to say, you get the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And this person was the sole breadwinner, pastor in a church, and because of COVID, so this was back 21, 22, it was a mega church and had lost a lot of their parishioners and they weren't hiding there anymore. So they had lost about 20% of their income. They cut 3 associates under them out, had to take up that slack. And then that was at Thanksgiving. Imagine at Thanksgiving. And then at Christmas, because nothing had improved, they cut another 50%. Cut their insurance out and dropped them down to 30 hours a week. And I'm calling them saying, hey, what can we do? And as a result, I listened, I repented quickly because of being judgmental, but they made a good faith effort and we prayed. The next day, somebody came and said, you've been on my heart, handed them $2,000. And then within 30 days, a person had also gotten into a small group online, said, this is what's happening, was humbled. And another person says, I want to hire you. And went through the interview process, had hired them on the spot. They were making more money than they had ever made before. And within 30 days was paid in full from 3 months behind. So you got both ends of that. One that's angry with you and then says, you know what? Okay, I understand. And then another one who was embarrassed, but worked with them and we saw how the Lord worked and truly got blessed.
I think that one of the keys, I think, in that we've seen with Heart First retention is like not being so quick just to cut people off, but just pause. Hey, let's hit pause. Like you're not going to lose any of your traction. You're not going to lose any of your progress if you're consuming membership area content. Like, obviously, we're going to exit you from a couple of the things. We're not going to allow you to be as present in the groups. We're not going to allow you to continue to consume, but we're not going to let, you won't lose your spot. We'll hold your stuff. How much could you do today? How soon could we get you back on in the future? Because we want you to continue on your trajectory forward. Like, and hearing them as people, I think is really a big deal.
Dan, I mean, kind of in relation to that, what's something you've learned doing this in the last couple of years that really helps you do it even better now and in the future?
Listen first rather than being so judgmental. And honestly, I still have an issue sometimes with it because I see people abusing the grace that we try to give, but still listening first and then take a breath and see what type of possibilities we can come up with so that we can get them back on track. And sometimes we have to do things a little unconventional. And instead of allowing them to pay a full month, break up that payment once every 2 weeks so that they can continue in and get them paid up, caught up. But listening to them and these are a lot of one-offs rather than we can't fit them into a box, and learning that we need to be flexible sometimes. So stopping, listening, being flexible, and thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. I remember when I was doing it for a bit, I was kind of had some free reign to give payment plans as fit because, the goal was if somebody owes you $1,000, $100 is better than $0. So we're going to present that to somebody and being graceful in that way is like, okay, we'll keep you in. How about $100 every 2 weeks and we'll get you paid off? And people that would win people over a lot.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's just another point of why I think it's so important to have a retention specialist to escalate to, because obviously you don't want to give your CS team that kind of authority to make those kind of decisions who haven't been able to take the time to really listen to the person's situation and evaluate everything. So knowing that you have someone on the team to escalate to listen to the actual issue and really dig in with them, and then that they have the authority to give those possible one-off, like I think it can give your team confidence to know that the customer is not just getting a straight no, that they might, get something that worked for them, but also for the executive level of the team, knowing that your lower team isn't just handing out, refunds or, willy-nilly payment plans or whatever, that it's a solid structure that's going to suit everybody well.
Yeah, I think I would say the things just identified there between both you guys, which is really good, is so make sure you have a person identified who's going to own it, right? Like a person, like a retention specialist is going to own it from your team. Make sure they have a proven process, right? Like, hey, so this is the way that we handle this once it's handed off to us. But then I think the final thing is just that whole, like, keep it practical, like realize that, like, listen to this person. How can this practically work? Like Terryn said, could we break this up to every couple of weeks, $100? Because you get probably paid on a biweekly pay period, right? So every couple of weeks, you might have the ability to start chunking at this thing and then giving them some time. Like, be practical about it. Like, make sure they don't think it's got to be an all or nothing. Oh, you fell behind on your payments. You're 3 months behind. I guess you're out then. Like, who's that going to serve? You're going to have to, as a business, write it off. Like, that's all you can do is realize you're not going to get any more money from this person. And in writing it off financially, you've just written them off as people. And for a future yes, and for future opportunities where if you gave them a little grace, if you made it a little more practical, gave them some steps, you could probably keep them on board, and they could be a future yes for you and are so appreciative that you heard where they were at and you didn't make it have to be hard line. It's only this or nothing. So I think that those are good things. Dan, I think it's good for people to hear experience of people outside of Collab Team, working with people inside of Collab Team. Maybe just your experience. Savannah talked about how it's been such a gift to have within Pedro Adao's organization, the recognition of needing to have a retention specialist that customer experience can escalate needs to. Maybe on your side, what's been your experience working with Collab Team from the Pedro Adao side, support you've received, just for people that are listening, wondering, and could maybe Collab come in and help us set up some systems, help us dial in that heart first sales retention thing they're talking about sounds really good. Maybe if you could just express it from your side of how, as a retention specialist, you felt supported by Collab Team.
Absolutely. So, first of all, you, with Terryn, had come up with SOP and all the detailed stuff that I'm not good at. You built that structure and beat that. You've been a liaison between different companies. And so you can take what specialized in to help these companies. And Savannah has been there with the customer service side to help a team there, because boy, I really lean heavily on the CS team on a daily basis, and so appreciate it. So when you put all these pieces of the puzzle together and we work well together, then we're going to have success. And I truly believe that that's, as the heart first starts to take off, you're going to see a lot of success for your clients.
I think that's what it comes down to, right? Like and I'm sure, Terryn, you're going to land the ship because you always land the plane better than I land the plane. But I think that that's really what it comes down to is, in the end, we're all just people, right? And in the end, the yes of a person has been because what you offer to them met a need they have. So don't forget that. Don't forget that when you're thinking about now. It's easy to get so pissed about, man, this person, what a deadbeat. They're exiting the program. What a loser. Don't they realize how much value I've given them? What do you mean they're arguing? How could they possibly have anything to argue about, rather than realizing, no, we're all just people. Probably your program isn't the only thing going on in their life. Like it's probably good to hear them out and then see where you can meet them in that spot and keep it at a human basis. And then obviously there is a spot downstream. I'm not saying collections shouldn't be somewhere engaged further downstream. If you have put all your energies at retention and it hasn't worked, having something that you're able to commit it to somebody maybe downstream behind you, maybe there's a spot for that, but definitely not losing the people part.
Can I add one more thing to that, Aaron?
Yeah.
That we are successful at keeping them on, even if it's outside the box, but we keep them on and get them paid in full. The easiest people you can turn around and resell again to are those that have already said yes, rather than kicking them to the curb. So you've kept your base and you've got an easier yes the next time around.
Oh yeah. What's really cool one to end on. I think, you also touched on there, like, what is your definition of success? We're not just always looking at the dollars being brought in. You especially are looking at the people's lives changed and conversations you have and, what's beyond that dollar that you're trying to get, what's at the heart of everything. So it's fun just lining that out as there's multiple areas of success in this role. And we can't just always look at it as how many dollars are there. Really great, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Been fun.
Thanks everybody for tuning in for Ops Experts Club this week. We'll make sure we see you next week as well. Same time next week, wherever you're tuning in, come back next week. And Dan, once again, man, so much love for you, brothers. So much appreciation, respect for you as a person. All the things you do, it makes our worlds better. So thank you for what you do. Thanks for the way you show up.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ops Experts Club podcast. New episodes available every week on Spotify, iTunes, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're curious about how some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship have scaled their businesses to the next level, check out some of our best content on this topic by going to foundationsthatscale.com. You can find the link in our bio and do your part to improve as an ops expert.